Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, taking a fun update video for you guys today, and that is because Jotego and his team, as of Sunday, decided to update the Capcom CPS 3 core with not only better visuals in Street Fighter the New Generation as well as Red Earth, but also bring Jojo's Venture to the mix on MiSTer FPGA. And even though Jojo's Venture sounds like Jojo opened up a frozen banana stand down by the beach because there's money in that business, it's one of those things. It is absolutely a 10 out of 10 fighting game with one of the weirdest senses of humor around and an absolutely 10 out of 10 batshit crazy storyline. That's Jojo to a T, and honestly, this new core, this update, and bringing this game in has absolutely and fundamentally improved the performance of something we know isn't finished yet. And honestly, this improvement is absolutely vast, and you really have to pixel peep to find some of the smaller issues. But as far as the actual gameplay is concerned, you can play the game from start to finish. The controls are responsive, there's no real latency in them whatsoever, and pulling off moves will be no issue. And you know full well, based upon Jotego and his team's other projects on the Capcom CPS and CPS 2 cores, by the time this thing is done, you're going to have an extremely accurate experience playing Capcom CPS 3 games. I just say that because I've gotten a bunch of comments and direct messages on Twitter and Discord saying that they had seen somebody saying that the core was not accurate. Well, no shit, it's not accurate. It isn't done yet. And I even wrote a response, kind of a joke, saying it would be like me reviewing my house that was in construction and saying my head got wet because it was raining and they hadn't put the roof on yet. It's just one of those things. Give this thing time. It is still in beta status. No, it is not supposed to be done. And by the time it is done, I am sure you will have a one-to-one recreation of a Capcom CPS 3 that a ton of different people would love to play. Because even if the game library doesn't have the most titles out there, they're absolutely some of the best fighting games ever made, and it absolutely looks incredible here out of the new core. And it really is disappointing that the CPS 3 hardware and games weren't that successful for Capcom, because we only ever got one genre on the board. And I guess technically Red Earth could technically count as two, because it feels more like a Boss Rush beat 'em up than it does a pure fighting game. But I would have loved to have seen Capcom or other developers use these things for 2D beat 'em ups and even shmups. It's one of those things though we're never going to get that reality. What we have here in the updated core is a good time. And again, just taking a look at the visuals, there really aren't many issues with it whatsoever. Every once in a while, there would be a couple of garbage pixels at the left or right hand side of the screen in transitions, and there might be a visual glitch here and there. But this already feels like 95% buttoned up, and it is only the second draft of the core that Jotego was put out. And that again is absolutely a testament to just how well the dude and his team know Capcom hardware, because if you've played Capcom CPS or CPS 2 on the MiSTer FPGA, then you know whose cores you're playing, and they are absolutely incredible. I think that there are a few kind of horizontal lines going through some of the sprites here and there, but if you didn't pixel peep on the video, you might not actually notice them whatsoever. But I am always impressed with all of these cores, and Capcom CPS 3 is not a light lifting piece of hardware. Yes, it shares the same Hitachi SH2 CPU that we have on MiSTer FPGA from SRG 320 on the Sega Saturn, the 32X, and now the Psycho SH2 core, but every other bit of silicon on a Capcom CPS 3 is custom bespoke hardware developed by Capcom back in the day, and that all needs to be reverse engineered, and all of that work is going into what amounts to basically just 3 games. Yes, there's multiple Street Fighters, yes, there's multiple Jojos, but honestly, they're just revisions of the same original game, and you have Red Earth, so you basically have between 3 to 6 games on the Capcom CPS 3, just depending on how you look at it. But I would say the Jojo game is definitely the best on Capcom CPS 3, at least for me personally, because I always preferred Street Fighter Alpha over Street Fighter 3, but you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, Alpha or 3, which one do you enjoy more? I genuinely would be curious. But it's one of those things, if you temper your expectations and don't expect a perfect experience yet because one was not promised to you, this is still in active development, that you're going to have a very, very fun time with this one. And a few people asked me if the CPS 2 core could apparently crash, and I actually tracked that down. No, it is not a crash. It's somebody in a competitive scene actually hitting the pause button, because you can wire that up, so don't forget, don't bind it if you don't want pause. Let's go into the first of 2 soundtrack samples, and I'll be right back with a lot more. No, I should never be one to be counted on too much when it comes to audio reproduction in these things, because I always like to say my hearing is not great whatsoever when it comes to actual music and understanding tone. That is because I am a filmmaker, have been for 22 years, and audio is something that a completely different department does on set, and all I know about the audio department is I don't ask them any questions on how things work, because they don't understand a damn thing they're saying, and I'm pretty sure it's probably the inverse. When I talk about the stuff I do, it's probably falling on deaf ears, pun very much intended for the audio quality. But as far as what I was hearing is concerned, didn't sound bad whatsoever. And again, hitting the pause button there intentionally is not a crash in the core. Just remember that if you are playing these things competitively, or you want to play with your friends, do not bind the pause button in arcade cores from Jotego. If you just hit the user button on your MiSTer FPGA, it'll skip that binding, and you won't actually be able to pause the game and take yourself out of the action. And with all of these different animations here, again, some of them repeating just so you can see how they look over and over, so you can actually stare at them versus looking at everything going on at once. I really don't see anything much whatsoever that makes me think that there's that many fundamental problems left in this core, at least for this game. But don't forget, every single game can and will use the hardware in different ways. No one game is going to use 100% of the functions of a piece of hardware, and because you have 6 different independent games you can load up on the core, well, at least 3 right now, you're going to get the other ones later on, you might see more glitches in one game versus the other, because whatever that's doing with the silicon might not be being done with the other 2 games, and I know that kind of trips people up sometimes when they see something like Jojo running so well and they move over to a different game and have a couple more visual glitches. They kind of wonder why. But outside again, out of some of the alignment issues in the text, it really can be difficult to try to find where the issues are here. And the last core I talked about, there was definitely some vertical lines as well where the background is basically breaking up, and that seems to be almost 100% fixed here in this core. Every once in a while I feel like I might see one, but again, it might just be my imagination, and if it's that point where you're actually trying to pixel peep to find the problems, you know that the core is progressing. And this is going to be fundamentally huge for the competitive scene as well, because trust me, Capcom CPS III hardware is not fun to own, so much so that I sold my hardware maybe 2-3 years ago, and I did have it modded because it was broken, and it definitely would probably break again. It's just some very sensitive hardware, and obviously if we have an FPGA core, you're not dealing with the overall sensibilities of the CPS III basically just deciding it was going to give up that day, because every single time you got excited to play it, you'd probably encounter some sort of problem, and that's not something you're going to have to deal with on MiSTer FPGA. And before you ask, Jotego did say on Patreon that these cores are apparently not coming over to Analogue Pocket just because it doesn't have the hardware available to be able to run them. So this is going to be a MiSTer FPGA quote-unquote exclusive, at least for now, but I'm sure there'll be other FPGA boards out there in the future that these things could be ported over to, because obviously we're having a big year in MiSTer FPGA territory in 2026, but there is going to get to a point in time where you basically have to move to new hardware because other cores become an impossibility. Let's do one more soundtrack sample so you can hear not only the audio quality coming out of the core, but the 10 out of 10 amazing soundtrack for Jojo's Adventure, and I'll be right back with just a bit more.
Make up mind. Fight. Lisa, Lisa.
So my only thought there is maybe the actual soundtrack. Now the sound effects are coming in a little bit loud, but again, it's been a minute or two since I actually played these games. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you think. But obviously Capcom CPS III is progressing nicely. Jotego went ahead and updated it on the weekend, not on the standard Fridays, and now it's something that everyone can play around with if you're a Patreon member. And because people keep asking me in the comments and sending me messages, I don't really want to be involved in any of the drama going on with FPGA gaming right now, and I don't recommend you do either. Play these cores, have fun with them, have fun with your MiSTer FPGAs, and ignore all the static out there because it is just a distraction. We're here to have fun, and I'm not going to touch on any of the stuff going on just because it doesn't interest me, because we're all adults, and trust me, I have a very limited amount of time in any given day, and I'm sure as hell not going to spend that having arguments on Twitter or on Discord or in comments about who's doing what or who's not doing what. Go play some games, have fun with them. Don't forget, that's not a crash, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.